Good evening and welcome. This is the September 11th, 2024 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including plan developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arevalo?
Here.
Commissioner Halleck? Here. Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Linwall?
Here.
Commissioner Mabadi?
Here.
Commissioner Madinchev?
Here.
Commissioner Pactel?
Here.
Commissioner Mangum?
Here.
Chair Rogers?
Here. So with 8 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight from city staff are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones, Assistant City Attorney Kathy Lone, and Planning Manager Liz Williams. This is a formal hearing. There are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be recorded accurately. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. I'm going to kind of skip through my usual opening statements since we have 2 open votes that we'll be taking a final vote on tonight, and then the other matter is a matter for discussion, so we won't be actually hearing any cases this evening. But I will state that since we do have everybody here who has not voted before, those 2 cases should get a final vote tonight. Before we actually begin this evening's meeting, I would like to take the prerogative as chair of just asking for a moment of silence as we remember September 11th and the people who lost their lives on that day. Thank you. And with that, we will move into the first item on the agenda this evening, which is 1630 Ashland, 24 ZMJV 0025. This is a case that has a current vote of 3-4. We have 2 outstanding votes on that, and I will be asking those commissioners to cast their votes. First commissioner is Commissioner Mabadi. Did you have the opportunity to review the materials and the video or minutes from that meeting?
Yes.
And are you prepared to cast a vote at this time?
Yes.
And what is your vote?
I support aye.
That's a vote yes. And Commissioner Mangum, you also had the opportunity to review the materials?
Yes.
And are you prepared to cast your vote?
Yes.
And how do you vote?
No.
So with 1 yes vote and 1 no vote, the final total is 4 in favor and 5 against, and the motion fails. Therefore, the project is not approved. The second case for this evening that we have to get final votes on is 1525 Judson, which is 24 ZMJV 0029. I have 3 commissioners who have outstanding votes on that. The first one is Commissioner Arevalo. Did you have an opportunity to review the materials and the video for that case?
Yes.
And are you prepared to cast your vote at this time?
Yes.
And how do you vote?
Yes.
It's a yes vote. Commissioner Mabadi, you also, on this case, were you had the opportunity to review the materials and watch the video?
Yes, I have.
And are you prepared to cast your vote?
Yes.
And what is your vote?
Yes.
All right. And finally, Commissioner Miranchev, you also had the opportunity to review the materials?
Yes.
And are you prepared to cast your vote?
Yes.
And how do you vote?
Yes.
So with that vote, I come to...
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yep.
This is one that is a yes vote for the appeal, in favor of the appeal?
No,
or
this is a yes
it
vote that supports the
original application.
the zoning administrator's decision, affirming the zoning administrator's decision. So with 7 votes in favor and 2 against, the decision of the zoning administrator is affirmed, and her ruling does stand at this point. That concludes those votes on those 2 items.
I understand you just said that. I would just like to say one thing, and this is not, I can't, I have to stop here really quick and just say it. But your Commissioner Max, I want an appellant to appeal this case. He practically said that the only reason why he was voting against it was because we didn't like getting views. I never said that. And I really felt I would not have liked my children to treat me that a man sitting behind this commission would have addressed us the way he did and raised his voice back. So I just felt like I knew we were not allowed to say anything tonight. I got mixed reviews about open testimony for this evening. And so I mean, I saw Claire Kelly and she thought that we were allowed to, but that's the only thing I want to say. I felt very appalled that he raised his voice to us and the fact that we weren't allowed to do this appeal, which we were. We were appealing whether it was the front or the
You hold
side
the
yard.
microphone. Okay, thank you. I cannot make any members apologize or anything. That is purely up to Commissioner Puctel. I don't know if you'd like to respond to it at all or not. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I signed up to make a comment on this case.
There is no more comments on this case. The public testimony was closed. We are merely executing the final votes on it.
She said I can comment at the end of the meeting?
You can comment at the end of the meeting on this particular case if you
Okay.
want to. There is a section for public comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I will.
I'm
All right.
sorry, I would have waited. I didn't.
No, that's fine. We're kind of casual tonight because we're really having a discussion item, and then we had these two outstanding votes. So I understand, and thank you for your comments, and we'll hear your comments later this evening. With that, the item that we do have on the agenda this evening is we will be discussing the calendar for the remainder of the year for us. We, as you all know, are going to be receiving a comp plan, zoning ordinance, and a map amendment, all as part of the Envision Evanston 2045 plan, which is currently, or has been happening in the city for 8 months, something like that.
Yep, approximately.
And there have been public hearings. I know that some of us have participated in some events as part of it as well, but we will be moving into the legislative process now towards the end of the year. And so I will just say that I've been working with staff and they've been working with me. Neither one of us is getting what we want, which means it's a good thing. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Williams to sort of present where we are, give us updates, and then we will move into our schedule towards the end of the year. So, Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Chair Rogers and members of the Land Use Commission. As Matt mentioned, we've been working very closely together, losing sleep and going back and spending lots and lots of time on the phone to make sure that we deliver a schedule that allows the Land Use Commission to continue this important work on the timeline that has been set out based on the contract and some of the City Council goals. So tonight, Matt, I'm going to go through kind of the preferred schedule based on the scope of services that we have with the consultant teams, but there's also an alternative proposal that we want to run through with you as well, which Matt can kind of share his thoughts on how best to approach that. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We can go through where we're at in the process and what you can anticipate over the coming months. So appreciate you guys all being here so we can talk through how we're going to handle all of this. So, come on. All right, so today is September 11th, and we're going to go through kind of a preliminary schedule. As some of you may be aware, the mayor and several members of the city council co-sponsored referrals that relate to Envision Evanston, and these are to address some of the observations of the consultant team based on community input, their visits to the community, and best practices in both planning and zoning currently nationally and internationally. Some of those referrals, our goal is to have discussions with the Land Use Commission because they do inform the zoning code that will ultimately come before you later this year. We also think it's an important opportunity to talk through this early so community members can also have an opportunity to come and provide comment at your forums on these topics in advance of actually seeing a draft proposal that's been solidified. So we're looking at the next meeting, which is September 25th. We'll be bringing forward a discussion item on the referral related to parking minimums. We'll also be talking about centers and corridors. This is a framework that there appears to be some buy-in based on community input thus far. And we'd like to work through kind of a workshop session on the Land Use Commission's thoughts on where those centers and corridors could be located across the community. We also will walk through some preliminary drafts of zoning designations that we're looking at for the new code. One of the things I'll mention about the zones is council's referral is to reduce the number of zones. So please anticipate the list being a lot shorter than what we currently have in our zoning ordinance. We're going to be lumping, not splitting. And then moving into October, we do have 2 planned development applications that have been filed and are going through staff review at the moment. The first we anticipate and will be noticing later this week for 910 through 938 Custard Avenue. So that will travel to you for a public hearing, public testimony deliberations on the 9th. We are proposing a special meeting on October 16th. This will be a discussion item, so technically quorum is not required, but I do encourage you all to be here and participate in this discussion, as it will relate to the referral about allowing duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes in the R1 through R3 zones currently identified in our zone or in our zoning code. The referral also asks us to look at minimum lot size in those districts as we make recommendations for the zoning code and how those would be reflected in the new version. So we'll be talking through that, talking through potential height, bulk requirements related to allowing those types of residential uses. Again, this speaks to one of the things we've heard. One of the key goals in the plan is to look at housing diversity, and this is one opportunity for us to allow equitable housing choice across all of Evanston. And then moving on to the end of October, we're looking at October 23rd as a potential continuance. You never know with planned developments, and it is a shall grant continuance in the city code. So depending on how the hearing goes on the 9th, we anticipate there could potentially be a continuance of that case, which would be heard on the 23rd. We also have an application for 1621 through 31 Chicago Avenue. This is Horizon Realty Group's proposal for the legacy development. So that one will be heard that evening. Moving into November, we are proposing a special meeting on November 6th. This would be for a potential continuance related to 1621 through 31 Chicago Avenue. And we would also be having a discussion regarding landscaping standards and green spaces. This is one of the referrals. The observation is that we need to continue to increase our tree canopy in the community in addition to encouraging public gathering spaces, green space access to that with all new developments, so that community members have the opportunity to experience fun, joy, and happiness related to any new development that is going on. On November 13th, this is where we kick off formal public hearings related to the comprehensive plan. On the 13th, we propose a staff presentation, which will walk through the draft plan. I will note that there are going to be several town hall discussions on both the comprehensive plan preceding your legislative process. During those town hall discussions, we will be soliciting feedback from community members that participate. We'll be tracking that input and we'll be cataloging it based on the different elements of the comprehensive plan and introducing that as part of the record for your consideration. So do want to just put a note in on the record that for community members that might be listening in or watching a future recording of this meeting, those town halls are another opportunity to learn about these documents ahead of the formal legislative process and then provide some early feedback before it travels to you all. On the 13th, we also anticipate setting aside 3 hours for public testimony on specifically the comprehensive plan itself. And we'll leave about an hour for commissioner questions and comments. One thing staff is going to do during these hearings is track commissioner comments and catalog those for you in a matrix that will help inform your deliberations. So as you're going through providing comments, if there are things that you'd like to note in terms of potential amendments you'd like to make during your deliberations, you can note those during those meetings. We'll track that for you all so that when you get to the end of this process, you can recall back kind of those comments that were made earlier on these topics based on public comment. Moving into November 20th, we will be holding the hearing and accepting public testimony on both the zoning ordinance and the map amendment that will coincide with that. So the new districting based on the zoning districts that are proposed in the zoning ordinance. So similarly, we'll have a staff presentation at the front end of that hearing. There will be an opportunity, 3 hours worth of public testimony at that meeting, and then again, another hour of commissioner comments. Moving into December, we are proposing an additional special meeting on December 4th. This would be a second hearing for public testimony related to the zoning ordinance and the map amendment. We'll have 3 hours of testimony again on the zoning code, and another hour for commissioner comments.
If I could just jump in there real quick. So what our intent is to break the zoning ordinance into 2 segments so that we don't end up like discussing the entire thing all at one time. And I've asked staff to, however they best feel it divides up well. That's purely at their discretion, but to try to hold a hearing on the entirety of a zoning ordinance over this 2 sessions and be jumping back and forth between different segments and different sections of the code and everything else. It just would be easier for us, in my opinion, to kind of break it into 2 digestible segments. So please continue.
That's great. Thank you. So then December 11th, we are anticipating continuance requests, and these would be granted based on the former hearings that we just ran through. So any continuance requests on the comprehensive plan would be requested at that hearing. Similarly, any continuances requested on the zoning ordinance or map amendment would be requested at those 2 previous meetings and would be continued to December 11th for consideration. So that's when there will be kind of the presentations by those that are requesting continuances, kind of back and forth conversations, responding to questions and whatever questions the commission may have. We would dedicate 3 hours to those continuance requests and then an hour for commissioner comments as well. And then that leads us to December 18th, which is commissioner questions, deliberations, and a vote on all 3 items. So you would be making a recommendation on the comprehensive plan and the zoning code and map amendment. So that is the current schedule and timeframe. I will make the note that this does add additional meetings beyond what was scoped with our consultant team. So there's going to need to be some discussions about how we are going to look at budget for these additional meetings. And so I just wanted to put that note out there. It is going to require staff to probably have to present some of the items because again, the budget that was adopted by council only covers 4 meetings with the Land Use Commission.
I'll just let you kind of call on people if you if you see them raise their hand.
Commissioner Halleck.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is in terms of the time each meeting is going to take. You have the 3 hours plus the 1 hour, but the presentation is going to take.
I think we were anticipating an hour for presentations each evening. It's a 5-hour meeting.
So each of these is midnight, 7 o'clock till midnight. Any chance of starting? I guess we could vote on this, but starting earlier so that we're not up till midnight
I
or
would
later?
welcome that as a recommendation if
I mean,
that's
we can
something
look
you're
at that.
interested in.
These were just merely
Yeah, I understand.
trying to assign some time frames to things.
So my second question is, will we get any like typically when we get a case, we get advanced information, we will get something for.
100%. So these drafts are going to be put out in the community once they're prepared and ready to go. So that will precede all of your hearings. The one thing that staff had recommended in kind of discussions as well is we're more than happy during any of these preceding meetings in October or before the public hearings start, we can also do presentations on the documents as well. We're happy to orient you to them. We're happy to kind of give you an overview of how you can start to review the content, but they will be publicly available leading into those town halls and also before your public
Prior
hearing.
to,
So
yeah, okay.
when they're released for the public town halls, that's the same version of the plan that'll travel to you for the public hearings.
See. And then my last question is, these 3 documents are all encompassing. I mean, they're huge. It's covering a lot of territory. So when you say vote, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to go through your normal process for how you make amendments to a document, and you will take a formal vote recommending approval. There are procedures on the comprehensive plan in terms of how you go through that and how you make those recommendations in our city code. So staff is happy to walk through that procedural element as well at an upcoming presentation for you. But yeah, it's based on our existing city code.
I'm just imagining, though, that we're never going to have a single document that everybody on this commission says, yes. There'll be parts that people say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I don't. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be.
So the way that we've discussed this is that we will use the same document the entire process. So we're not going to make recommendations, ask for changes to be made, and then get a revised document or anything like that. So the original document will move all the way through. When we get to the final votes and deliberations, we will ask for amendments to make those changes to the one existing document. So, and I'm just going to throw something out, and this is totally made up, so I'll use fake things. Zoning code X3 allows for something that we don't feel is appropriate for that. Someone would make a motion saying, I think X3 should be limited to this. That becomes an amendment. That will move forward to council.
Each amendment is voted on.
Correct.
And the majority
Correct.
gets.
And then we vote on it. So it's kind of like, if you think of council and the way they do the consent agenda, the main documents will be consent agendas that will have amendments added on to them.
I see.
So who's going to be creating those amendments?
So what we're going to do is we'll track your commissioner comments throughout. We'll provide you with that matrix summarizing some of the concerns you've brought up during your discussions early in the process. But it will be up to commission members to actually make amendment motions. Again, leading into these conversations, you guys will have 2 months with this work and a little bit of time before that as well to acquaint yourself with these documents. And staff is here to support you if you need kind of guidance on, how to craft motions based on what you're thinking. We're absolutely willing to support you in that.
I have another question. When it passes from us to council, we're advisory, I assume, are they going to go through a similar process?
So it will follow the same process as any type of text amendment, map amendment, or this is the first time in my time here that a comprehensive plan will be adopted and placed on file. So They don't have to technically hold a formal public hearing that's being held with the Land Use Commission, but they will travel as some of them will travel as ordinances, so that will require two readings before council before they can adopt and place on file.
So in terms of the finalization of this plan, this is our part, but the council part could last a few more months.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the schedule anticipates this wrapping up with City Council in March.
I see. But during that period, there's all the public comment is closed after we finish it, or no?
They will have the opportunity for public comment at their meetings. Yep.
So it'll move like any other type of thing that we recommend. I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, I may be speaking out of turn, but it would probably begin with P&D.
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of the normal process. And so they would do what they do. They would move it, they would introduce it then at that council meeting after P&D, and then they would have a 2-week wait before they would do adoption of anything that's final. But it would move through the normal process. Citizens would be allowed to come during citizen comment like they do on any matter before City Council and P&D.
Yeah.
If it goes
We'll be
that way.
working through a similar conversation with them in the coming weeks, month, to solidify their schedule as well. I think it's important for us to provide a little bit of foreshadowing in terms of when the community members can weigh in on this topic. And so it's our goal as staff to provide that clear path forward so folks are informed and aware when they need to be at certain meetings.
So I'm guessing some of these issues are going to be controversial.
No, not at all.
You don't think so? Yeah. Want to bet?
Yeah.
But my last question, when is the election? And is this planned to be completed a few weeks before the election, or what's the plan?
You know, I really am not interested in speaking to the political elements of things. I think the election is in what, April?
April 1st.
April 1st.
And then
There's a couple of weeks before. In May would be when the new council would be seated.
So the election, from your standpoint, is not the driver?
Council set out a schedule when they approved the contract with HDR. They've also established a city council goal that says they want to see new and equitable zoning by 2025. So that's what's driving the schedule from my perspective.
I have several questions. First of all, the consultants are preparing a draft.
Yep.
Is staff going to review it and edit? You know, how final or thorough is this draft going to be when it gets to the public?
It's going to be a fully drafted plan. So
Okay.
It's going to have all of the different elements. It's going to have all of the policy and action recommendations. It's going to have an implementation schedule. It's the full plan. And
Okay.
to your question
'Cause-
about staff review, absolutely staff is reviewing.
Because, you know, I noticed, you know, I've got the handy dandy little postcard and while I don't quibble with many of them, you know, I've got a couple of, you know, like I'm not sure establishing a strong local economy is kind of the right word. I'd say support or some other word, because, you know, we're dealing with a community with 3,000 businesses and 39,000 jobs. So it's not like we don't have a fairly robust economy, but now this is out here, and I presume that that's the policy that will be, or objective that will be reflected in the plan. So changing the word will require an amendment. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yes. If you want to see anything changed in the actual document, we will need motions and votes on it.
And then the other question I've got, you know, like in looking at these, it's like, where does, for example, transportation fit into this list?
There is a proposed transportation and mobility element of the plan.
Okay, and where is it going to fall under this, your list of action? Is this not, is this postcard that had the objectives?
I'm not, I'd have to look at it. I need glasses, I'll be honest.
That's okay, I do too. It's the postcard that was handed out at the sessions, the focus groups. So, you know, that's
So yes, those are the draft goals that have been developed based on community impact or input through the process thus far. If the commission or the feedback that we're receiving from the community is that those goals do not represent everything that is necessary, then absolutely it can be recommended by the Land Use Commission to be added.
But the problem is, I mean, you know, and also, I don't know if you have, this is pretty old, but there's the Illinois legislature enacted the Local Technical Planning Assistant Act that lays out elements that need to be in a plan. and
Correct. So those elements are all in the plan.
Are they in the plan?
Absolutely, yes.
Because that's kind of, you know, one of my fears is that the plan that is drafted and presented to the community is not going to have all of the elements.
It'll have all of the elements that are statutorily required.
Yeah, for example, telecommunications. So we've got to talk about broadband, which I haven't seen in any of the discussions that we've had so far. So, and then I guess another kind of question is that the city has just launched was the environmental justice, another planning process, and where is that going to fit into the comprehensive plan? Are they going to review the draft and make comments? You know, how's that going to factor into what we're doing?
I think that process is just kicked off with an RFP, so I doubt there will be a draft available for anyone to review ahead of this process.
No, but I mean, is that group going to review the draft comprehensive plan? Is that something that, you know, because what they're doing sounds like it's pretty related in terms of making sure that we have a equitable
Sure.
plan.
Yeah,
And
I think everyone in the community is invited to provide feedback as this travels through, and once the draft is actually publicly available. I know we've had quite a few conversations with both the Environment Board, the CARP Implementation Task Force. We've had folks come to office hours. We've done deep dive conversations with members of that particular group. So from that perspective, they're going to be utilizing CARP as the foundation, which includes several recommendations and policy objectives related to that. So again, this is an opportunity, the iterative process, and as things move forward, if there are gaps in what's being presented to the community, we definitely encourage that this body, you know, make recommendations to ensure that it's included. But staff has been doing our due diligence as we go through this process. You know, I want to give kudos to Megan. We've got folks in every department of the city department. Kara and her team attend weekly meetings on this project. So again, staff from all areas and expertise, subject matters of the city organization have been involved in helping to guide and provide input in addition to community members. If you recall, we've had thousands of people weigh in on this process thus far. It's been great feedback, and I think from our perspective, the one thing that they're looking to see is for us to actually implement plans. So that's one of, from my perspective, drivers of getting this work done, because we need to implement this work.
Right, I don't disagree. I'm just I'm concerned that the timeline for our reviewing and going through really, since we still don't have a draft and we're not going to see a draft for a bit longer, is pretty ambitious, and I'm not sure it's possible to get through on that timeline. And just I will not be able to attend the October 16th meeting, I think it was, whatever the, yep, on the R1 through R3 zones, and that's a topic that I'm particularly interested in. So what's the best way?
You're more than welcome to reach out to Megan and I. We're happy to sit down with you one-on-one if you'd like to share your feedback related to that topic.
Okay.
Question?
And then I'll miss the December 4th as well, but that at least, well, you know, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah, maybe a good segue from that is my reaction to this plan is that it's aggressive, and it's aggressive for good reasons. But I'm concerned that even personally, and I imagine others on the commission feel the same way. Like, these are really important topics. These are really important meetings to be at. And these are like weekly meetings that I know personally. I mean, I may have made work commitments like months in advance. Would it be helpful to take some kind of poll, like an availability poll amongst us to kind of chart out what the expected attendance is going to be for the next 3 months so that we can figure out if the schedule needs to be adjusted at all to maximize our attendance and to maximize our engagement at all of them?
Yeah, happy to do that poll this evening. I will just put a plug in that any additional meetings beyond 4 has budget implications. And we've already received some estimates of what those budget implications would be to add additional hearing dates.
Well,
I'm
not suggesting adding dates. I'm suggesting either spreading them out or shifting or moving them. Same number of meetings.
Well, and quite frankly, I don't know that the consultant necessarily has to be at all of them. I'm perfectly happy with staff since, I mean,
Yeah,
as you said,
there's certain aspects that I would challenge the commission to understand that it's better to have the consultant
Well,
teams
and-
here
and
because they've been the ones that have been absolutely writing all of this. And so, again, staff can be here to supplement, but from our perspective, the consultant teams are going to be vital to these discussions.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that especially for some of the preliminary things or when we're trying to wrap our head around what the text is, I'm not sure I think the consultant's probably better when we've kind of figured out sort of what the issues are from the local perspective.
And my hope is that you can take a look at that ahead of these hearings, because as I mentioned, you will be receiving this information. Staff is also happy to come and give those presentations at these items. You know, the discussion items we've added on the referrals aren't going to take hours and hours of your time. So we're happy to walk through the drafts in advance. We're happy to give you the time you need to look at them. My hope is that we can continue to remain to this schedule. That's what council has asked us to do. And, you know, as has been pointed out, this is really important work for us to get done.
As far as attendance goes, I mean, I was thinking for your comment that maybe we should find out who can't make, what meetings. But on the other hand, we don't need a quorum for any of
We need a
these, do we?
quorum.
That's correct.
Oh, we do.
We need a quorum for any business-type matters to.
So even in,
And
I'm not
although-
talking about the last vote, I'm talking about all of these other meetings. We need a quorum for all of them?
I would love to have a quorum at each. The only
I'm
things
not
that we
saying,
don't
I think
have-
that's a great thing. We should
The
have
only ones that when she
100%,
mentioned
but-
quorum was really on those those discussion points, because since there will be no business transacted whatsoever, but I really feel that taking public testimony is part of the business that we do. So quorums should be present for all of that stuff.
Well, then asking for attendance commitments is relevant.
Yeah, I would also offer, just in terms of time frame constraints, we have a massive pipeline of projects lined up. The longer this goes on, the longer it's going to delay and the more meetings that are going to need to be added, because those applications have statutory requirements in terms of timeframes by which they have to be processed. So again, I'm not trying to push you all into an area where you don't feel comfortable. I just want you to understand some of the constraints that are here.
Well, would you, sorry, go ahead.
I have two questions. The information you're going to be providing us, the work product that you're going to provide us for these meetings, how much time in advance do we expect to get that?
So you will receive them as soon as the town halls happen. So they will be released, let me just look here.
So I have the calendar, if my calendar was correct, it looks like the town halls are going to be the week of the 14th and 21st of October for the comp plan. And then the 4th and 11th of November for the zoning ordinance.
And I would say take that with a grain of salt because
Everything here
everything is
is kind
tentative,
of-
but we're
Yeah.
really trying to pin this down because what I mentioned earlier, we need to inform the community. That's the biggest thing in this is if we're truly wanting to hear from the community on these topics, we need to give them a heads up of when it's going to come. So ideally by the next meeting, I want the schedule solidified.
Yeah, and as far as the town, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
No,
You were talking.
the comp plan on 11/13, you're saying the meeting, the presentation on 11/13, you're saying that plan will be available on the 20th of October?
It'll be available ahead of that. It'll be available likely the beginning of, sorry, let me just make sure I'm not overcommitting. It should be available the week of 10/23.
Oh, so we have time to drive through it. I mean, it's not, we're going to get it 48 hours before the meeting. So
Correct. And you will also have that plan until December 18th, which is when you are making a recommendation on it.
Right,
So,
but to dialogue, we'd have to talk to ourselves. We'd have,
absolutely.
okay. The second thing is, and because I'm new to this, I don't understand all the process. For example, on 10/9, I am not going to be around for that meeting. Do I have the ability to converse or provide any thoughts about so if you're out until
Yeah.
you're in?
You have to be physically present
Got
to,
it.
yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Before we continue down here, go ahead, Commissioner Fractel.
yeah, I'm just feeling really discouraged because I know I have many conflicts this fall and winter, and I feel like it's really important to be here. So I'm trying to figure out, and I hear you saying that like we got to lock it down in the next week. Great, I hear you, but there's got to be some way to like make some adjustments based on our collective availability to like maximize and optimize our attendance at all these meetings.
For sure. Yep.
I'd like to go to this end of the dais and sort of get input here. Commissioner Mirinchev?
So I have one comment. I may miss some of the things that happened already, but the first two items on the agenda, on the schedule, if you can go to the start. Okay. So we have parking minimum centers, corridors, and zones. Yes, before that, usually, at least in my, let's say, urban planning practice, we started with the demographic model. We started with the socioeconomic model. We started with the concept of the town. Isn't it better if we have discussion on this too after we have the draft or some of the drafts from the team so that we can comment on that? Because these are the basics of a start of urban planning.
Yeah, 100%. And we did release the preliminary findings report that went through existing and projected demographics, jobs, all of the details on where we are currently and what the projections are showing in terms of population growth, income levels. So if it has not, like, we can bring that back to you all and do another presentation on that information. It is publicly available out there currently for you all to take a look
I
at.
will ask my colleagues. Obviously, I missed some of these things, but I believe these are the basis of a good planning. So if we have a opinion, a thought
Yeah.
on these things would be
It's
nice.
there, but it's not, I mean, there are gaps in that existing conditions report that was presented. I mean, it's good basic information, but when we're dealing with, like, for example, brownfields are dealt with in the plan, the existing conditions report really doesn't talk about them. I presume that the draft we're going to see has the context. So I think that in part, we have to rely on you to make sure we're getting a really complete plan that's close to being ready to go, because otherwise we are just going to be debating, what the policy ought to be, and the public's not going to be able to really respond intelligently, nor are we. So I think that the background context thing, as you say, ought to be included in the draft, so we do know, we understand what the context for the recommendations are.
Matt, this is why I wanted to do those intro presentations, so we're going to add those back on.
That's fine, but that means this commission is being expected to meet every Wednesday, basically from October 1st through the end of the year.
No, I'm discussing in conjunction with the referral discussions.
Right.
We're going to be doing intro
Yeah.
presentations on this content as well, because it sounds like, that would make folks feel a little more comfortable in terms of how this travels through, having the
Correct.
orientation to what the document is, and highlighting any major concerns that you're seeing out the gate, so that if we can address them before your public hearings, we will.
Is there a table of contents that you can share with us early on of the plan document?
We can work on getting that to you at one of the upcoming discussion
Yeah,
items.
Because I think that would be, because having the table of contents, we'd at least be able to see if there's like an obvious gap.
Okay.
I think we should, I think we should take the schedule as you say, commit to it. I think we can preliminarily commit to it, but I think the proof is going to be in the first few meetings, how these go, because.
Right. I mean, we
if
could
they-
see that there's only 2 hours of people that show up to
Or
do
the
public,
opposite.
or the opposite. It's 10 hours. Yeah, I hear
Or
you.
we need more time.
Yep.
I mean,
And that's all, this has all been discussed behind the scenes, that we need to have somewhat of a baseline plan for meetings. We don't know what's going to happen with them.
That's why I
at
asked
some
about the
point.
election, because if there is not a hard deadline, then I feel more comfortable, frankly.
So
Yeah, I will say that there are constraints in terms of how long this work can go on. We have a certain budget, a certain scope, and that scope ends in March. So from that standpoint, we can't drag this on forever. And every meeting that we add on, the consultant team, it's over $25,000. So that is a big budget implication
And I
that
do
you all need
understand
to be
that,
aware
but
of.
I think you should also consider Max's comment about maybe every week for 3 months is a lot. And that, people are going to miss, people are going to be, if they miss a couple of meetings, they're going to be sort of out of the loop, and then it's just a rush. It's just very rushed, I think.
Hi. I think someone else mentioned this earlier. Maybe for that first meeting, we can try to meet maybe at 6 o'clock instead of 7, just to see how things will go. And then maybe after the first time, we can get a better idea of scheduling.
Sure. I'd welcome that motion.
I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think that's something that is definitely on the table. Can I have just a moment sidebar with Ms. Williams?
Well, you might have different council members. But this is supposed to last for the next 20 years, so it should,
That's kind of like 25,000.
You have pronounced of this schedule. Let me see.
I intend to learn.
I'm asking Ms. Williams to hand out a second schedule, which doesn't really give us a lot more time off, but does help space out what we'll be going through as part of the process. It would require at least one additional meeting that we would have to pay for. Not we have to pay for, but the city would have to pay for. I feel that because of the importance of the work, that is something that we as a commission could ask city council to approve that expenditure. We are permitted under the ordinance to ask for expenditures on items. Okay. And so that is something that we could be prepared to do as part of it. So the one that is labeled alt, the one that's labeled alt is the one that Ms. Williams just took us through. The one that is not labeled alt takes us into the second week of January. It does have one extra meeting that would be involved as a map amendment or a continuation of zoning ordinance issues that need to happen. The way that this one, the nice thing about this one, in my opinion, is that it does kind of keep things in categories. So the comp plan happens right before Thanksgiving. Then the period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, Hanukkah, is the period where we address the zoning ordinance, get continuances. It has a meeting on January 8th, which is labeled for map amendment, but also could include additional discussion on the zoning ordinance, and then having us take our final vote on the 15th. I mean, neither of these is ideal. It's going to require a lot of back-to-back weeks. That unfortunately is just the nature of the beast with this and the timeline that we have been given by City Council. If I drafted my ideal timeline, it would not be as aggressive as this, but I don't get to do that. But these are kind of two options that are before us, and then obviously if there's something else that somebody has a concern, a particular issue with, but I think it would work to see if one of these works better for us maybe than the other based on commissioner attendance, or if they both are equally as good or equally as bad. So I'm just going to go off the record for a moment so the commissioners can kind of look through these and compare them to their calendars if they need to, anything like that. So I'm going to take just a 5-minute recess, and we'll go back on the record at 8 o'clock so that if there's any questions, people can just kind of look through at them. Okay, we are back on the record. My microphone finally started up. So people have had a chance to kind of look through these, hopefully look at like when they are available, things like that. I'm going to start with just a very simple question in terms of availability, and that is looking at the alternative schedule. We are taking our final vote on December 18th. Is there anyone who cannot make that meeting on December 18th? Everyone's good with that? Okay. On the other schedule, it would be the 15th of January. Is there anybody that cannot make that meeting that they know of at this point? I mean, I realize we're talking several months out, but if both those meetings look, so there's not one that we have to just throw out because nobody can be at one of the final meetings. Okay. Are people generally leaning towards one that they have more availability? I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these meetings are the same days because that's just the way it's going to work. Because when you're meeting every Wednesday, it's going to be every Wednesday. The one schedule gives us a little bit of a breather before the final vote. The other one puts the final vote right at the end of the year. I don't know if people have feelings one way or the other on that.
Typically, I don't know that we have, all of us have made up our plans for the holidays, but typically around the holidays, people go away. So I would think that as our plans get settled, that they're going to be around those 2 weeks. So,
Can I just ask for clarification, which weeks are you referring to?
Christmas and New Year's? The two on the alternate plan?
So those weren't proposed as any
There's nothing
meetings?
happening on those. Those
Yeah,
are just
those are
merely
no
marking
meetings.
calendar dates.
Oh,
so
I'm
that people
sorry.
know
I was looking,
Ignore the pink. The pink are just simply holidays. The pink recognize the holidays. So we would either be completed with it by Christmas, or there would be a 2-week break at Christmas and New Year's, followed by coming back for final.
It'd be likely the continuances.
And the final
8th
vote
And the
then.
final vote the
Yeah.
following week.
I would be inclined to the second schedule,
Okay.
with one amendment, if I can call it this way. Why don't we use the week of the 6th of November, as it is in the first schedule, and free the week of 18th of December, so that people have more time for vacation before Christmas?
The one thing that was done with this schedule and an attempt was to break it into digestible parts that were kind of grouped by when they were happening. So if there's going to be a long gap at the end of the process, or over Thanksgiving or something like that, that's what this calendar kind of attempted to do, was to group things. So the comp plan would be finished by Thanksgiving. The zoning ordinance review would be done by Christmas, and then any continuances would bleed over the Christmas holiday or the Hanukkah holiday. They both coincide at the same time this year. And then have the final vote after that. So when we talked about these, being cognizant of the money that's been set aside for this particular project, the first schedule, the alt schedule, would require no additional money whatsoever, because we would be asking staff to walk us through the comp plan, but then the meetings that would involve discussions on the zoning ordinance and map amendment, as well as the continuance and our final deliberation, would be the 4 meetings that would be covered under the scope of work with HDR. The second proposal would require one additional meeting though with them being present, because staff is still doing the comp plan on the 20th, so the meetings on the 4th, 11th, 18th, 4th, 11th, 18th. So that would require 2 additional meetings. So that would be 2 additional meetings using the second plan, in terms of 2 additional meetings above and beyond the scope of work, not necessarily 2 additional meetings that we would be calling or anything like that. It would be something that we would have to request from City Council to make an expenditure on this project for us to do that schedule.
Do we know the cost of the 2 additional meetings?
Yes, we do.
It's about $100,000.
No.
Based on what we requested from HDR, yes, it's for the 6 hearings that are here.
But that's not an additional, because you said that it was $28,000 per meeting.
Sorry, I might have misspoke. I think you are correct. They said it would be approximately $28,500 per
So
additional
we'd be looking at
meeting.
additional $57,000 to adopt the second schedule, $0 for the first schedule, the alt schedule.
Is there a way to start with the alt schedule, and then if we needed to adopt, like see where we go, see where it goes, and then address that?
The problem with that is I don't want to speed things up, because we would go out to the community with an expectation of, these are the meetings we're doing, here's what we're doing at these meetings. And the only thing that would happen, in my opinion, that would change this would be if we set aside 3 hours for public testimony and we only get 2 hours. It's not going to change any of the dates we meet. It would just merely the times, or if staff needed extra time to present something to us, we may shift those hours around a little bit. But I want to get out in front of the community so they know when and where and what we're discussing on which dates, so that they can plan if there's a particular part of this that they're interested in. Some people may be more interested in the comp plan than they are in the actual ordinance. Some people may be concerned merely about their property and the ordinance, and they don't care about anything else that's there, and so they're going to look through it through those eyes. So it'll be very different, and people will be coming and engaging with us at different levels.
Excuse me, not to add more complexity to this, but, and because I've never been through this process before, but the way this is organized, it's sort of tries to be linear, the comp plan, then zoning ordinance, and map amendment. But it seems to me, could be wrong, that there's going to be back and forth. We're going to see something in the zoning ordinance that says, well, wait a second, we didn't really address that in the comp plan. So then we go back to the comp plan. And I don't know whether that adds time or not, it's hard to tell, but that is what you're expecting.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be very difficult for folks, I know myself included, to stay focused on the topic at hand.
Yeah. I
You know,
think so.
in terms of just observations on public testimony, folks are coming from their perspective, what they find to be important to them. That could be across several different things. The one thing to keep in mind is we're also asking community members to come out to each one of these meetings to provide public comment on these different topics. So that's 3 or 4 meetings they need to dedicate to this, where if it was coupled together, they could be at 1 or 2 meetings. So again, there are trade-offs here, and what we're trying to balance is a lot of different things.
I also have a feeling that this is an above average community, I would expect, and they're going to be more informed than most, but they're going to come to these meetings with an issue, I think. They're not going to come with language, I wouldn't imagine. And so those issues are going to span all 3 documents.
Correct.
So we just have to consider that.
We're trying to do a couple things here, because if we literally say we're going to discuss the comp plan, the map amendment, and the zoning ordinance at 3 meetings, we're going to be all over the board. And so we're trying to, and we can't prevent the bleed that's going to occur in those. And we will as well. And that's one of the reasons also why we're not voting on anything until we have everything. So we aren't approving a comp plan and then saying, okay, we voted on a comp plan and it's passed 9-0, and so now we're going to look at the zoning ordinance. It's all going to be voted on at a single time, so that anything that's in the comp plan that we feel the zoning ordinance affects or changes or should change, or vice versa, and the same with the map amendment, will all be addressed at the end of things.
My fears have been reduced a bit. I mean, both schedules are not as bad as I expected. The extended one has a little more availability for me, so I guess personally I prefer that. But I know I'm just one vote on this commission. So in addition to that preference, is there also an opportunity to try to shift regularly scheduled meetings, the yellow ones, to non-yellow squares? Or is that going to throw people off too much?
So you're saying not meet on Wednesday nights?
Or or shift it to another Wednesday night?
Well, I mean, there's only a couple blank Wednesday nights once we get this. There's 2 blank Wednesdays in one and 1 blank Wednesday in the other.
In the extended, I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
But we aren't going to have an ordinance or a comp plan to respond to that early in the game. So he's looking at next week. And we aren't going to have something to respond to. So everything really kind of starts
Okay, fine.
that beginning of November.
Yeah, November
period.
13th is the
Fine, but
earliest
then,
we can
so
start
how
hearings.
about the Wednesday before Halloween? Can we move a meeting to that?
We can.
We could trade the 6th with the 30th.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just kind of trying to break some things up and give a break somewhere. I don't care. if
Again,
the
I'm just one person. If it means that a lot of people can attend something like that, then maybe it's worthwhile. I'm asking if that kind of thing is possible.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is possible. The thing is, it kind of looks at, these both kind of have somewhat of a cadence to them. We naturally have some weeks built in. I mean, we do not meet on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That's not going to happen. We are not going to meet on Christmas Day. Those sorts of things. But if there's one meeting on the 30th or the 6th that people can make and other people can't make, we can definitely shift
Yeah,
that
except-
around.
Except we have a case on that, so I don't know about notice.
No, on November.
No, I'm looking at November. We have a,
It would be a continuance,
It would be
which
a
does not
continuance.
require notice.
But that
Okay, never
continuance
mind.
could occur the week before. It doesn't matter. It's just, again, the second one, what we were trying to do here is kind of give a 3 off, 3 off, 3 off, 2 sort of thing. The other one, we get 2 weeks in a row off, but then it's literally starting in and going straight through.
I have a question,
Yep.
not referring to the schedule. I guess my question is this plan, is everything changing? Or is there certain things that are, for example, so zoning, building heights?
It'll change.
Okay, because I'm just, questioning if something's not changing, if there's something that we can compare and say, okay, and then is there going to be I guess, community input, like, let's say, building height is 35 feet right now. And if it's changing to 36 feet, or, if community input says, no, we should change it to 38 feet, is this going to be a discussion for every single item on this plan?
So it will include, what will be presented to you is a completely new comprehensive plan. It'll be a completely new framework that aligns with the requirements of comprehensive plans here. You'll also receive a brand new zoning ordinance. My anticipation is the zones will all be different than what we have currently in our code. As I mentioned, one of the council referrals is to reduce the number of zones in Evanston. So right now, what is it, 34, including the overlays? I would anticipate to see that likely cut in half. So in a lot of ways, the goals of the code and the new framework is to simplify and streamline. So I also don't anticipate you getting a 500-page zoning code similar to what we have today. It will be laid out a lot differently than how it is currently. So that comparison, absolutely, we can provide, but there won't necessarily be R1 here, R1 there, and here's the differences between the two.
So Liz, I think I heard you say that we won't have the current zoning current zoning to compare with.
It's going to be a repeal and replace. So you will not be seeing a inline track changes. It's too many changes, Commissioner Halleck.
But it should be a simpler document to get through.
I understand, but isn't that important to the community who may not know that, just using height as an example, if it's 35 feet now and then it's recommended to go to 40 feet, well, the community may not know it's 35 feet now. And they may, you know what I mean? I think the change is kind of important, isn't it?
For sure. And what we've discussed is having fact sheets so that if a community member's property is currently zoned R1 and their new zoning designation is something different, here's what it was before, here's what it's proposed to be. So there will be a comparison in terms of the districts. It's just not going to be apples to apples, R1, R1. You know, it might be R1 and let's say neighborhood residential, you know, but neighborhood residential might include areas that are beyond where R1 is currently located in the community.
I think you're going to get a lot of questions on what is the current zoning. in this
Absolutely,
process. I
and so
think
that's
they're
why
gonna-
those fact sheets are going to be critical to being able to compare what was versus what is, but we're not going to have a inline track change version of our
Okay.
existing
Well,
ordinance.
Okay, I understand, and that's tough, and I was expecting that, actually, but no.
Really? You like our framework currently, Commissioner? It's so easy to get through and
I
find
understand.
things.
I understand. I understand.
So are these fact sheets that you're talking about, are these the PDFs that you can pull down, say R1 through R3, that gives you the lot coverage and?
Correct, yeah. But we will probably put them in a much more digestible format than actual text of a zoning ordinance.
So we have, and I might be speaking a little out of turn here, but we have like the little grid sheets that show like
Correct.
R1 through R3, and these are the commercial districts, and these are the business districts, and it kind of has just a chart like,
Correct.
this is your height here, this is your height there.
Yep.
So it'd be something similar to that, I'm guessing, because
Absolutely.
that's the easiest way to digest these things.
Correct.
So the PDF I'm referring to has uses also. Has-
I believe that's what our fact sheets currently have, yeah.
Yeah.
And lot coverage and lot size.
Correct.
Per unit, dwelling unit, okay.
FAR, all that.
So that's going to be not comparable to how, so that's on us to like look that up and see what it means. in the-
You guys are going to have a lot of homework over 3 months.
got you.
Absolutely.
All right.
I have another question. Now, the town halls that you're having on the comp plan and the zoning
And those may
ordinance.
not be exactly accurate to her
Yes,
dates. 'cause
yes,
that's-
please do not, those have not been solidified, so I
Okay.
really don't want to get those dates out there
Oh, I'm
on the
not
record,
worrying about
please.
I'm more, want to know kind of what the content is. Is it just a presentation?
No,
How
it'll
are
be an-
comments
Yeah, it-
captured? And how are we going to get the comments? Do we have to watch go
Nope.
to the town? So it's really, because that's going to inform, in addition to the testimony that we have at our public hearings, I would think that we would want to have some information on the comments and the concerns that are raised at the town halls.
Absolutely. So we will be cataloging all comments that are provided at the town hall. There'll be opportunities to provide written comment at those meetings or through an online form. These will also be available online for folks that do not want to attend those town halls. We're envisioning in-person town halls, virtual town halls, Spanish town halls, all of the town halls. We will be collecting that input, categorizing it based on if it's related to the zoning code, whether it's related to the comprehensive plan, trying to work it through from a topic area for you to organize it. Yeah, there's a lot of work that's going to go into this in advance of you receiving the drafts.
You guys are going to be very, very busy.
We already are.
So I guess I don't want to kind of beat the dead horse here and belabor this. We have two plans kind of before us at this point. Is there anybody who wants to throw out one plan entirely? My plan is to kind of adopt both of these preliminarily at this moment and then ask City Council for additional funding, so that we could do the second one if we want to. If they say no to the funding, then we have to do the first one. That's kind of the way it works. If they say, yes, we will give you some extra money to have a couple extra meetings, then that would be a plan we could move forward with.
You can do that. You can try. I just don't think they'll give $50,000 away without showing a real need, and we won't have that need until we get into this.
I think that once we get into the process, we can't predict any of that. There's no way to predict some of this stuff. But what we need to do is make a best effort guess on creating a schedule and saying, this is what we're going to do at these times, but we all know that things change. But I think that we can be successful. We were successful with Ryan Field in keeping it to somewhat of a structured meeting where people feel they were able to be heard. We got a lot, I think we got 1,500 pages of citizen comment. I fully understand that. But the thing is, we aren't going to get the timeline that I would ideally love for this. So it's really kind of down to one of these two. And if city council does not provide additional funding, then it's down to one.
I think that's fine. I'd just like to propose that maybe one of the two meetings that are scheduled for the first weeks in November, the 6th and the 13th, can be shifted to the Wednesday before Halloween. I don't know if that works better for anybody else.
I mean, that actually works better for me, but I'm giving up my life for these 3 months. But I realize not everybody can do that. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner or anything like that to. So he's looking at
The 6th, November 6th and 13th, I cannot make. So regardless of which schedule we go with, I'm proposing to move a meeting from either the 6th or the 13th to October 30th.
And I think the meeting that would have to move would be the 6th, because I don't think that we would have a comp plan ready for us to look at if we moved the comp plan discussion meeting any earlier.
Yeah, that would make sense to me, because the 6th is a little iffy for me.
So, I
Flying
mean,
back
if
from
we
out
want
of town, so.
to shift on the alt version, the 6th up to the 30th,
Yeah, that would be fine.
30th of October, yes.
Correct.
6th of November to 30th of October. Does that cause any problems with staff?
It does not, but I would request that we do that for the longer schedule as well. Mainly because I would like to move the 13th meeting to the 30th, because
Right.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I wasn't following that. Yes.
Yes.
So we could move the 13th meeting up to the 13th of November up to the October 30th. That would then give us the 6th and the 13th off.
Unless you want to do the intro presentation that we discussed to
Or we could
orient
do-
you all to
yeah.
the documents. So this would kind of be similar to town hall, although the format of that
If that's
will.
a discussion type item
Yeah.
like the other ones, then I think we can do that because we don't have to worry as much about quorum on that. So if staff wants to throw that in, it's putting an extra meeting in there, but it is one that would not require a full quorum to be here if people did have to miss.
Yeah, I'd prefer if we maybe take a poll on that outside of this meeting, just to make sure that
Yep.
there is critical
So I'm
mass,
just
because
trying
it
to
is a lot of
give
time.
you
Yeah, no, I appreciate the
things,
direction.
And then maybe we can do an online thing. But I wanted to get these out in front of everybody, so everybody at least had something to respond to, because I've been talking about this with staff, but we've been talking very hypotheticals. And it's like, well, what about this date? And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, no, that isn't a real date. So I wanted to get something on paper so that we had something to respond to.
Thanks.
And then, so I think one of the things, is there anybody who would have a problem if we were to start at 6:30? I don't want to do 6 unless the city is going to feed us.
We're happy to consider dinner. I think my preference would be that we start earlier.
That's fine. I just want to make sure if people are working downtown and get off work at 5 and get up here at 6, then that means no lunch or dinner for anybody. So if the city's willing to feed us, because then we're keeping people here until 11 o'clock or midnight on those nights as well.
Understood.
This is fine.
So does anybody have a problem starting at 6 if we were to do that? So that would be part of and we'll figure all this out and get it all solidified and everything like that. So at this point, with these two things, I'm going to make a motion that we make a formal request to City Council, and I'm going to make it for an amount not to exceed $60,000, which should give us 2 extra meetings, and that gives us a little wiggle room there, for us to, if we feel that the original plan, not the alt, is a better schedule, that we could conduct the meetings that way. Does that make sense to everyone? And is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on that? So, Ms. Jones, if you would please call the roll. Again, this is a motion to request up to $60,000 in additional funding for the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance map amendment process with HDR.
Okay. Commissioner Aravallo?
Yes.
Commissioner Halleck? Yes. Commissioner Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mabadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Medinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Puctel?
Yes.
Commissioner Mangum?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes. So with 8 votes in favor and none against, I don't know what the process is for that, if that's literally staff kind of drafting something up for us, or if you want me to sign something as the chair, or however we want to do it, I don't know, because we've never requested money before.
We'll work it out. Thank you for the direction. We appreciate it.
So does that answer all of your questions, Ms. Williams?
It does. Thank you so much. And I just
know who's going to be missed meetings or not.
I think we can do all of
We're gonna
that
do a doodle.
online.
Yeah.
Rather than everybody, because that gives people time to sit down, look at their calendars, think things through instead of trying to do it in a meeting like this. Because what we will do then hopefully is have all of this finalized. It kind of depends on also, I don't know, I know City Council will have some, if we're asking them for money, they will have a process they have to move through. But we can kind of get started a little bit on some of this because the very beginning of this is not really that different.
correct. Yeah.
So hopefully that gives us somewhere to get started. All right. I appreciate everyone's time on this. I know the mayor sent us all little notes basically stressing the importance of this work. It's a lot to ask. We're doing a lot of extra meetings. I mean, normally during November and December, we do one meeting each month. So we already, at the beginning of the year, adopted 2 additional meetings, and now we're looking at adding some more on top of that. So I do appreciate everyone trying to make those meetings, to make it all work. It's going to be a lot to do. But it's work that we need to do, and is being, like I said, the timeline, if I had the opportunity to create an ideal timeline, this would not be it, but we are under direction from council, from the mayor, to move forward on this timeline and still give council time to review it and have their input before they make their final decision, which I'm guessing will be the last meeting in March, most likely, at the latest. So thank you again, everyone, for that. We do have a couple other quick little items on the agenda. Communication, is there anything else staff would like to share with us?
Not this evening, no, thank you.
All right. The next section is public comment, and I have Mitchell Harrison signed up.
He left.
But he left. And so you're up, and Jean Laughing Coyote?
My name is Jean Smiling.
Smiling Coyote. Oh,
Yes,
got it.
You can tell I'm not laughing after that vote was taken on 1525 Judson. You want me to repeat my home address again. I live at 1823 West Granville Avenue in Chicago. I spend plenty of time in Evanston. And here's my comment. The purpose and intent of the Evanston zoning ordinance includes securing adequate light, conserving and enhancing the taxable value of land and buildings, regulating and determining the area of open space between and among the surrounding buildings, and encouraging the preservation and enhancement of natural resources and natural features. The rules of interpretation say the provisions of this ordinance shall be construed to achieve the purposes for which they are adopted. In the August 28th hearing, most of the discussion supporting the proposed ADU was based on the location of the front and side yards according to the zoning law using the dimensions of the rectangle. These legal designations support the ADU by right. My proposal for a different ADU location did not discuss the zoning ordinance and was probably disregarded for that reason. Opposition to the ADU proposed by the owner included the de facto uses of the front and side yards, which differ from the legal labels. My proposal is better because it better meets the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. It respects the de facto uses of the yards, includes minimal change to the existing building footprints and trees, and better meets the needs of the residents of both the house and the ADU, this latter by putting the ADU on the ground floor for elders and the neighbors. I urge the owner change his ADU proposal to my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out and sitting through our somewhat boring discussion, I'm sure, on scheduling. So, all right, well, good. And I'll hand that off to staff, so that will be put in that file. I don't know if anybody else, citizen comment, if there's anybody else who wanted to make anything. I don't see anybody. Is there anything else to bring before the commission? I don't think so. So I'll ask if there is a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned until our meeting on the 25th in Council Chambers at 7 o'clock.